this little book in times past as a devotional and a way of centering myself daily. The author is Henry Nouwen, and the book's title is Bread for the Journey, A Day Book of Wisdom and Faith. And there's a reading for each day of the year in the book. And I'd like to share the one that I remembered from June the 20th. And it's just June 20th. You can use this book any year. It's not for any particular year. And this reading is titled Right Living and Right Speaking. And here Henry says, to be a witness for God is to be a living sign of God's presence in the world. What we live is more important than what we say. Because the right way of living always leads to the right way of speaking. When we forgive our neighbors from our hearts will speak forgiving words. When we are grateful, we will speak grateful words. And when we are hopeful and joyful, we will speak hopeful and joyful words. When our words come too soon and we are not yet living what we are saying, we easily give double messages. Giving double messages, one with our words and another with our actions, makes us hypocrites. May our lives give us the right words, and may our words lead us to the right lives. You know, there's a general feeling in the church today that we need to draw attention to ourselves to have an impact on the world. We buy television time, newspaper space, we produce eye-catching billboards and posters, and we try to ensure that we are always at the heart of the conversation, always being recognized and quoted. And I find this in the greater Christian community and in our own denomination, an annual conference. Yet, in spite of the huge religious marketing machine and the vast amounts of money that we pour into it, our message, or rather Jesus, the message of Jesus, still seems to be getting lost. Oh, I'm getting congregations where they point to, oh, look what a great job we're doing, and we're bringing folks in, and we're winning folks for Christ. And yet every one of us sitting here today, if we are people of faith, every one of us sitting here today, as friends, family members, brothers, sisters, uncles, parents, who seem to have lost the message of Christ. Perhaps, just perhaps, we misunderstood what Jesus meant about letting our light shine. Perhaps we really thought, perhaps we really haven't thought through all the implications of salt and light, neither of which is valuable by itself. Look straight into the light. You damage your eyes. Eat salt alone and you'll experience fluid retention or high blood pressure, or at least extreme thirst. These two things, salt and light, exist not for their own sakes, but for the difference that they make to all other things. It's not the light that you and I want to look at. It's the world that the light brings into vibrant focus and color. That's what we want to look at. It's not the salt that we want to taste. And although my wife slaps my hands and says, taste it before you put any salt on it. You'd think she'd give up after 46 years, but she hasn't. You know, I'm not going to take a salt shaker and go like this before I ever taste it. It's not the salt that we want to taste. It's the variety and the richness of the flavors already contained in our foods that the salt brings out. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus seems to take for granted that the Pharisees are genuinely seeking to live righteously. That's why he uses them as a standard for his followers, not to emulate, but to exceed. But there's one thing that irks him about the religious elite of his day. If you read a little further over into chapter 6, you would see it. The thing that irks him about the religious elite is their constant need to put their religion on public display. And the problem with public shows of religion is this. I want you to get this. The problem is when the message of faith is constantly shouted out. Now listen. When the message of faith is constantly shouted out, folks stop listening. And they start examining the lives of the shouters. And when they find the inevitable failure to practice what is being preached, they simply tune the message out. They tune it out. There's many of us here today who may think we're righteous. And you may be right. But we're never as righteous as we think we are. And so, there's hardly a one of us here who can stand close, hard scrutiny and not be concerned about something that someone might find. But the Salt and Light conspiracy does not draw attention to itself. It simply reveals the world as it is and shows what can be done about it, not through a loud, attention-getting words, but through quiet, momentum-gathering actions. As Nowlan says in his June 20th reading, and here I quote, "To be a witness for God is to be a living sign of God's presence in the world. What we live," he continues to say, "is more important than what we say, because the right way of living always leads to the right way of speaking." All we need is a heart that finds color and tastiness in life, wherever it can be found, and that invites others into that experience, no matter who they may be. And like salt and light, we are forgotten in the sheer joy of seeing and tasting. So God gets the glory, and not you or I or the church. God gets the glory. If you read about salt and light in the Gospel of Mark and Luke, the salt image is linked with the daily work of living compassionately and justly. For Mark, it's about living in peace. And for Luke, it's about thoughtful, committed self-sacrifice. If you and I are looking for personal or corporate adulation, then we better steer clear of the Sermon on the Mount. But if we're willing to give away our reputations and our desire for affirmation, if we're willing to give those two things away in favor of making the world a little more whole and a little more compassionate, a little more just and true, then the salt and light conspiracy is the way to go. And if you haven't already joined in that conspiracy. Won't you consider joining today? Now it goes on to say this, as I quote again. When we are forgiving, our heart will speak forgiving words. And when we are grateful, we will speak grateful words. And when we are joyful, we will speak joyful words. When our words come out too soon, and we're not living what we're saying, we really give a double message. And giving double messages, one with our words and another with our actions, makes us hypocrites. End of quote. May our lives, your life and my life, may our lives give us the right words